Hello. Today I'm going to talk about World Mental Health Day, which is October the 10th. And as it implies, it's about removing the stigma surrounding mental health. In Australia, we have 1 to 5 Australians that are affected by mental health. But unfortunately, and I find this a lot in Australia, we have this system in our society where we don't talk, and we're told to just man up and get over it and toughen up. And that's kind of built into our society. And unfortunately, that doesn't help those 1 in 5 Australians that are struggling with a mental health issue. In 2012, I suffered greatly from depression. And I always say depression with a capital D, because it's not a mild case of like, oh, just feeling a bit sad today. You get out of it a few days later. I'm talking like deep-seated depression that kind of sinks into your bones, into your muscles, into your mind. And this was at least a year's journey of feeling not worthy enough, feeling not good enough, not loved, lovable. And unfortunately at that time, I decided to stay at work full time and try and ignore this deep-seated depression that had settled in due to a real big shift in my life. And consequently, what happened was I also developed anxiety. I also had panic attacks all the time. And I'm talking like I would cry 5 to 6 times a day. Like I'm talking bawl my eyes 5 to 6 times a day. Now that's not normal by any means. However, it came normal for me because I refused to get help. I refused to take some time off. I refused to put myself first. And so it was this really sad time. I lost a lot of weight. And that in itself is a really interesting thing, because at the time I got so many compliments about how skinny I was. And in fact, only a few days ago, I heard some people in my industry, in the performing industry, talk to me, talking about how they love it when they're stressed, that they get so skinny. Yes, they feel terrible, but God, they're so skinny. And that's kind of what society we're living in. We have on every single corner a gym, a new fitness regime, but on every single corner we don't have a mental health fitness regime, something to really anchor us and help ground us and support us. And 1 in 5 Australians are right now suffering from a mental illness, and today is all about removing that stigma. The stigma that you need to just get over it, toughen up, man up. Ooh. We really need to face our demons. It's the only way. And it is so vital that if you're feeling depressed or anxious or you're having panic attacks and this is consuming your life, stopping you from growing and living, if you're feeling like you're just in a state of existing, then seek support, whether that's through family or friends or a professional. So for me, when I talk about depression, and depression with a capital D, I liken it to feeling like you've walked along a road and you've fallen in a ditch. And in that ditch, it's dark, it's deep, it's cold, there's no one there. And you try and get out of this ditch, but you keep sliding back down. Every time you think you find a little nook for your foot or your hand, you slip and you fall. And you fall so many times and you cannot find the light. You cannot get out of this hole, that you keep falling to the ground. And after a while, it becomes more comfortable to just stay on the ground, to just stay in that dark place, that solitary, isolated place where you are by yourself, where your mind and your thoughts rule your world. Your mind, that is your worst enemy, is your only comfort. So that mind that's telling you you're not good enough, they hate you, you're not lovable, you're not good enough, you're not worthy, whatever. And the hardest thing is to continuously get up and keep trying to get out. You feel heavy. You don't feel like you're worthy of that light that you see up above you. So you stay down, you stay low, you stay small. My journey out of this was that I had a beautiful family around me. So once I allowed them to come into my life and I didn't keep myself isolated from them, they realized I needed support. A whole range of people offered support, which was wonderful. Of one of these people, I ended up seeing a chiro who studies ENT, emotional neurological technique. I may be making up exactly what that means. And that started to shift my entire world. That was one little nook that someone else provided for me to help get up. I started talking about my problems, and he made that so normal. I felt so comfortable talking to this stranger because it was such an objective talk. I didn't feel like a failure around him. I felt like a failure around everyone else. I was failing at life, not just failing at that exam or failing. I was actually on paper doing well. I was performing in a show 8 times a week, which is my dream, which is my love, which is my passion. I was auditioning for other shows and getting booked into all these other shows. Like, my life on paper looked great, but it wasn't. It was a battlefield every single day. So this talking to someone started to uncover some deep-seated problems that we all have, but come to light when you're in a state of trauma or there's a big shift in your life that kind of shocks you and stumbles you. And by coming to knowing some of these truths about myself, I took the pressure off of trying to be perfect, of trying to not fail, because consequently when you try to not fail, you fail, because you're telling yourself fail, fail, fail. Doesn't hear the not. Don't fail, don't fail. So anyways, and another beautiful thing that came into my life unexpectedly was yoga. And when I say yoga, I don't even really mean the asana, the physical side of it. I mean, I love that, and I love the challenge of that, and that's given me a lot of courage. But the meditation side. So meditation, I absolutely hated at that time in my life, because when you meditate, you sit and are with yourself. You hear your thoughts. You hear every thought that you have. And if you don't have a good relationship with your mind, and your thoughts are sabotaging your life, you don't want to sit with yourself. So I would run, I would swim, I would jump, I would do high interval training so that I constantly was moving and never having to tune into my mind. And going and doing my first yoga teacher training, which, if I admit, I thought was totally about the physicality, forced me to sit with myself. And it wasn't comfortable. There's nothing comfortable about sitting with your worst enemy and listening to them. But over time, you start to transform your thoughts. You start to transform your life. So I implore anyone who needs support at the moment to pick up the phone, ring your best friend, ring a helpline, go and see someone professional that's in the mental health industry. They're there to support you. You're not a failure. You're not different. You're just living a human experience, and that's part of the human experience. But if you can find tools to help get you out of that hole, life will be so much easier. It'll be so much more joyous. There'll be so much more love. And when you're leading with love versus fear, life is a lot easier. So, happy World Mental Health Day. Sending love to you all.